Chair recognizes Mr. Green.
Thank you, Chairman McCall. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you for appearing here. I was encouraged to hear in your testimony that you want to restore Congress's pivotal role in foreign policy process. That's a goal that you and I share. But if that's a genuine goal or desire of yours, two things have to happen. Firstly, it'd be great if you could appear before us more than once a year. That would be greatly appreciated. We enjoy the dialogue. I know you and I have had some agreements where we've talked about things, and of course my nearshoring bill, your department did a wonderful job providing some input on that. But secondly, I think you should own some of the mistakes. I think it would give you incredible credibility if you did that. Both mistakes made and mistakes being made. One of the worst decisions, and I want to take an opportunity to point this out, I think the State Department has made is abandoning the asylum cooperation agreements that were negotiated with Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras under the previous administration. I think this was one of the first actions that you took in office back in February of 21, and it's been one of the most damaging to our homeland security, and I speak as the chair of that committee. As you know, there are currently no legal mechanisms to return a migrant to a transitory country they pass through on their way to the United States. Despite a humanitarian crisis on our border with Mexico, you withdrew from essential agreements with our allies that were stemming the scourge of human trafficking and the flow of lethal drugs through Central America. And I think that's both shameful and preventable. The border chief just recently gave testimony to the Committee on Homeland Security, and he identified the empowerment of the cartels by using mass waves of people to control 5 of our 9 sectors on our southwest border due to the loss of the ability, one of the reasons, to return people. And the termination of these return agreements has been a complete and utter disaster, I believe, on many of the metrics that you in this budget process say you support. You said you were pursuing a free, secure, and I'm quoting, free, secure, open, and prosperous world. But I want to tell you that we don't get a prosperous free world when you allow cartels to smuggle narcotics and traffic migrants across the Western Hemisphere and into our country. You've also allowed our relationships with Latin American countries to deteriorate. I look at the many, I would say the metastasis of Cuba's Huela across Latin America. And for instance, just recently, here's an example, Mexico with its increasingly becoming lawless puppet of the cartels almost. I mean, the Mexican military just recently illegally seized the private property of an American company, a company with significant presence in my district in Tennessee. And rather than working to stop those violent cartels and deadly fentanyl taking American lives, Mexico is using its military and law enforcement to occupy private property of American citizens, American businesses. And that's really unacceptable. And it shows how the perpetual weakness that we sometimes portray in this administration is emboldening the Mexican government's lawlessness. My first question to you is on fentanyl, and it's killed over 70,000 Americans just last year. The Mexican cartels primarily use Chinese-sourced precursor chemicals in what is the most surveilled society on the planet. They can't tell us where that's coming from. I'd like to ask what steps in 2023 the department plans to take to counter the cartel's production and trafficking of fentanyl into the United States.
Thank you for that question. I really do appreciate, because I share not only your deep concern, this is an absolute top priority for us, as I know it is for you. And as you point out, fentanyl is the #1 killer of Americans aged 18 to 49. We see the devastating consequences of having it community after community. We seized more fentanyl last year, or enough fentanyl last year to kill every single American. So yes, we're seized with this. Let me
and
just
you
say,
understand, just I don't mean to interrupt,
please,
but
go ahead.
You do understand that it's those increased seizures are a neutralization attack from the cartels. I mean, they're flooding the crossing sites, so your numbers are going to go up. The CBP's being thinned and put at those crossing sites because they have to, because of those mass waves run by the cartels, and that's allowing more fentanyl to come in. I mean, the dollar price of fentanyl in my district, according to our sheriffs, went from $95 in January of 21 to $28. So that means the supply, you get it. Okay.
Yeah, I really do appreciate that. Let me just say very quickly, because this is hugely important, and we want to work with you on this. We are engaged in a comprehensive approach. Obviously, the things that we're doing at home to reduce demand, increase treatment, provide antidotes are usually important, but while necessary, obviously insufficient. We have the border itself, as you know from your work, at least according to DHS, about 95% of the fentanyl coming into the United States from Mexico is coming through legal points of entry. We have technology that you, I know, are well aware of that can help us better detect the efforts to smuggle through points of entry this fentanyl, which is being deployed. Third, we are working with Mexico to try to disrupt the cartels, to try to disband the places where fentanyl is being manufactured. Mexico is usually security challenged. That is no secret. They have put increased resources into this. Their seizures of fentanyl are up. The forces they have deployed to deal with it are up. We put together last year a joint program to bring our resources together to deal with this in Mexico, to include also bringing in other agencies that are critical. Let me just very quickly do two things. Fourth, excuse me. The international beyond Mexico component of this is usually important. That goes to China. One of the things that we know is happening is that legal precursors are being diverted into illicit use to manufacture synthetic opioids like fentanyl. So I have seized the G20, the 20 leading economies in the world, to include China on this. We just had a foreign ministers meeting where, for the first time, fentanyl was put front and center on the agenda. We'll be establishing a working group to bring these countries and the private sector together to work on this. One of the things that we can do effectively, I believe, that we haven't done in the past, information sharing, labeling, know your customers, so that companies that are unintentionally having their products diverted into illegal use will have a way of dealing more effectively with this. Now, one way or another, we need to bring China into this.
Yes,
My hope
please.
would be cooperatively, but in the absence of that, we have to look at other steps that we can take.
On a separate note, and I'll be very quick, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to connect with your office about some cyber stuff that sits in both as I straddle being on this great committee with this great chairman and serve in Homeland Security. I have some ideas I'd like to run by you.
I'd welcome that. Thank you.
Gentlemen,